And Mock Draft Watch and Buffalo Bills draft coverage is presented by Ticketmaster. And as we know, because she's been doing this the last few years, culling together every mock draft under the sun of any repute.
Let me say, this is the best thing ever because, everybody like who they, I don't care who they have us taken.
Well, yes.
I am so glad Maddy sorts through.
This is the one-stop shop.
I do this for you and only you, Tasker.
I appreciate it, too, because it's my favorite segment of the entire offseason. So I don't have to look at 9,000 mock drafts.
Yeah.
I just ask Mad Girl.
Maddy does the one-stop shopping for you, which appears on BuffaloBills.com. So if you want to see this, online, that is where you go. As she pulls them all together, puts them in a one convenient list for you, and we try to make suppositions and speculation about.
Yeah.
So Brownie,
trying to add them up,
right?
See who's going where.
Brownie and I, everybody's on the wide receiver train, right? Let's go, man.
Yeah.
We're gonna go. We're gonna
ahead.
be like that. And then the first mock draft I see, they got us taking a safety.
Yeah,
I'm like, what? Yeah, right?
We can wait on safety, really. But we're going to go over some DBs nonetheless, just in case.
Yeah.
Just in case.
We're going to talk about the wide receivers, but wide receivers are already being talked about, so I figured let's start elsewhere.
Yeah,
and then
we'll
get to the wide receivers eventually, at least
plenty of time.
During this segment we will. I know you guys have already started to talk about some of the wide receivers out there, and of course, everybody's seen them on the mock drafts because I've tracked 15 so far, and of those 15, 8 wide receivers have been mocked to the Buffalo Bills at that number 28 spot. So they're the favorite right now. I would guess they're going to be the favorite for a while. Again, we're going to see what's going to happen during free agency. We're going to see what spots are filled through free agency. And then we'll see all of this kind of shift to what's left for the Buffalo Bills to tackle through the draft. Number 2 on the list of the 15 we've tracked so far, 4 defensive backs. That's 2 DBs, 1 cornerback, and 1 safety. And we'll talk about the guy who's being labeled as a DB right now because we'll see what he plays in the NFL. He played cornerback in college. Some people would like to see him at safety in the NFL. Some people think he's a true cornerback. We will see 1 offensive tackle, 2 defensive tackles as well. So I don't know if we'll see many offensive linemen in the first round going to the Buffalo Bills, but
there's
I don't know. We'll see.
Probably not, but stranger
but you know
things
what?
have happened.
You think, you think about it. You go, and we've had this conversation too because, as you can see, wide receiver, defensive back, or corner, defensive tackle, offensive tackle, the 4 money positions. They're the most important positions on the field outside of the quarterback. And the Bills certainly aren't going in that direction high in this draft. So it makes some sense, no question. And we've said too, it's a balance between you get a guy who's gifted that is off the charts, genetically separate, and also all the stuff. He's checks all the boxes, but he may not be at a position you really need, right? It's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to get around when you get a guy like that drops to you or whatever. But and I'll say this too. I've told him the big time wide, like Marvin Harrison Jr. is never dropping out of the top 5 or 6, let alone the 28. And guys like him, you just never get a shot at.
When you're good like the Bills are, you're not going to get a shot.
You never get a shot at those
guys.
Not
to mention, you can't really control what happens in front of you. So you're kind of
you never know when the run on wide receivers is going to
your power is limited.
So do you? And I know this too. And somebody brought this up on the tweet sheet of all things yesterday. I forgot, and he's right. Brandon Beane's going to fill all the holes before the draft anyway.
As many as possible.
As many as possible. And there'll be some question marks and all that. But they're going to have guys on the roster, they're going to think, man, he's got a chance to be pretty good, or all that. So they can take the best guy available. That's who you want to be able to do. But still, I have a hard time getting to the point where I'm going to take a corner.
Right. All that being said, though, we're going to go down this path anyway. So let's go in alphabetical order here, Maddy, and we're starting with the kid from Iowa, right?
Okay, we're starting with the kid from Iowa. We know this coaching staff likes players from Iowa because we've seen a few on the roster. AJ Epinesa, Micah Hyde, to name a couple of guys on the defensive side here. But we're going to talk about defensive back Cooper DeJean. He's a junior, 6'1", 203 pounds. He played in 30 games, started in 23 in his 3 seasons. His last year, 2023, ended early because of a lower leg injury that happened in practice in November, so you didn't see a full season from him in his junior year. But in his career, he had 7 interceptions, 3 he returned for touchdowns. I want to get that right. He had all of those during his sophomore seasons, 20 passes defensed, 5 TFLs, and 120 total tackles. That was during his career. His best season came in his sophomore year when he had a full year to play, 5 interceptions, those 3 that he returned for touchdowns, 13 passes defense. So this was a productive player. And then you see the accolades that go along with it. He was a unanimous consensus All-American. He was first team All-Big Ten in 2023, was a finalist on a couple of the big lists for defensive players, specifically defensive backs. He played in the slot and out wide during his career. When you turn on the tape on this player, you look at his athleticism, his good size. He looks instinctive, strong. He knows how to get his hands on the football and is great against the run. I think that's really one of his big gifts and one of his strengths when you're watching tape on him. He has a knack for finding the end zone when he picks off balls, because he had 3 that he returned for touchdowns during his sophomore season out of those 5 interceptions that he had. He's got a good feel for the ball, and it shows with the way that he moves to it. He's smooth and fluid. He's got nice feet. He does a good job of reading the quarterback. He can bait a quarterback into making plays, and he knows when he can really pursue the football and pick it off. I really liked watching that on film. It doesn't look like he's always overcommitting to a play. It looks like he knows where the ball is going to go. He knows if he can jump in front of a wide receiver, and then he'll do that. I think he can help with the run coverage on this team. He can shed blocks. He's a good tackler. Is he going to be a corner or a safety? It kind of depends on what team he's looking at or what scouts think of him. Would they rather have him in that cornerback position, or would they rather see him transition to a safety? He definitely flashed on film as a cornerback, and if you're looking at what the Bills need with positions, quarterback, I don't know if that's a top-tier need for them right now. Safety, you look at the departure of Micah Hyde. Who knows what's going to happen? Is he going to be in Buffalo for another season? Is he going to go elsewhere? Is his career going to, be over? Is he going to retire? We're not sure what's going to happen there. We know Jordan Poyer still has 1 more year left on his contract with the Bills, but Micah Hyde is now a free agent. So safety.
And so is Taylor Rapp, and so is Cam Lewis.
Yeah, so safety may be a position of need for this team as you enter the draft. We're not sure what's going to happen in free agency with that position group, but if you're looking at safety, you might want to peek at this guy. Do you guys think he's more of a cornerback? Do you think he's a safety? Do you think he could transition to a safety? I don't know.
I think he's safety all the way.
Yeah, I think he's probably more of a safety. There's some quick twitch that I don't think he has in his game that would lend itself better to playing corner. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have the quick twitch, at least from the limited film I've seen of him. That's not to say he can't play out there in a pinch, but his versatility, I think, is what is attractive here. And let's not forget, there was a corner who played at Iowa a long time ago who played outside corner, played slot, and returned kicks and punts. Because this kid, DeJean, returns kicks and punts also.
Yes, he also did that.
His name was Micah Hyde. I mean, this kid does everything that Micah Hyde did in college.
He's that kind of
player. And
player.
played at the same school.
He's that kind of player. Incredibly high football IQ. So really smart. So that's,
I first saw him play when Iowa played Minnesota. And it's a tie game, low-scoring game. They punt the ball away, and DeJean's the returner. And it's a bouncing ball along the sideline, and he scoops it up and then returns it 50 yards for what should have been the game-winning touchdown. And the officials flag him because they said he signaled for a fair catch, when all he was doing was telling his teammates, get away from the ball like this, like right here, just under his chest. And they said, oh, no, you signaled for a fair catch, so you can't advance the ball. And they called the touchdown back. Iowa lost the game.
That's another time when the officiating needs to be exploded. But
But I see instincts with this kid.
Right.
And I think
he looks like a smart football player.
Right. The only problem,
thing, yeah.
the only problem as it pertains to the Bills and their safety need is the kid's never played safety full time before, and it's like, what kind of investment do you want to make in your safety position with a guy that might need a little time on the job before he can help you on the field and you trust him there? To me, it's the learning curve question that is very hard to answer until you see him playing the position.
Right.
Now, there could be a whole multitude of things that happen here in the offseason. Is Christian Benford still a consideration at safety?
Good point.
And then do you look at him more as a corner? So there are a lot of balls in the air, I think, with the safety position for Buffalo that I don't know if you want to put your eggs in the DeJean basket and say, well, we project him there, but we don't need him to be our number 2 safety.
I'll say this, too.
That's the rub for me.
He is extremely high in this entire class of defensive backs, cornerbacks, safeties, whichever one you want to be. He's very highly ranked in all the scouting services as to one of the top defensive backs at corner or safety. And I think that comes back to his IQ. He's also 6'1", 205. So he's a big enough kid.
Yeah, he looks big.
And he's thick. And he's fast enough at 4.5. But you're right. The explosion is what you really need. But I'll say that if he's as smart as he seems to be, that's going to overcome a ton. It's like Micah. You don't come across guys that smart.
He's the kind of guy that you expect Brandon Beane, when he describes him, to say he's just a football player.
Yeah.
Because that's what he is.
Yeah, he's number 12 on Mel Kiper's big board, top 25 players. And if you read what Mel Kiper Jr. had to say on him, it was that when he was watching film of guys like Lucas Van Ness and Jack Campbell and Riley Moss in the last couple of years, he kept looking at Cooper DeJean and was wondering, okay, when is this kid going to come out? He's very impressive. I like what I see from him. He said he's just silky as a cover man, and I think you see that when you watch the tape on him. So he's a player, like you said, Steve. A lot of the analysts are speaking very highly of him, but it'll depend on if you want to spend a first-round pick on somebody who is he going to be guaranteed to pop at safety in the NFL? I don't know if that question can be yes right away. You might need to see that from him first.
He's a projection, and I think because of that, I think his value suffers because he's not a sure thing. He's not to me. He's not a sure thing at corner to be a first-round pick. If you want to take him in round 2, or maybe even later. I mean, Mel Kiper loves him. That's obvious. But if you're projecting him to safety and you haven't seen him play there, to me, you move him down your board because the projection is longer. It's less of a sure thing. To me, that's the way the value works, but I could be wrong. Let's move to a guy who is more of a true safety.
Yep, it is Kamren Kinchens from Miami. He's a junior as well, 6 feet tall, 205 pounds. He played in 34 games, started in 26 in his career. He has 11 interceptions, 2 returned for touchdowns, 26 passes defense, 2 forced fumbles, 5 TFLs, a sack, 162 total tackles. He had 6 of those 11 interceptions last season, or in 2022, 5 interceptions in 2023. So all of those interceptions coming in the last 2 seasons from him. He's been all ACC first team in the last 2 seasons. In 2022, he was all America first team. And first thoughts when you watch some tape on this guy, he puts his body on the line for the football. He plays with the motor. He hits hard. He's got some pop to him. He has nice hands. He can track the football very well. He has quick feet and can get to the ball quickly. I think this helps in run coverage, playing that safety position. You have to cover a lot of land if you're going to help in run coverage, and he can definitely do that. He does a really good job, I think, of reading and reacting to a quarterback. He can recognize routes and make decisions off what he's seeing in the drop of a hat. The way that he can make the field look so small, I think, is one of his most impressive traits. This guy can cover a lot of land and make it look really easy. So that's what stood out to me when I watched some film on Kamren Kinchens. I think he's a very athletic player. I love that he plays hard. He plays with some pop. His hits look very hard, and it looks like he can get anywhere he needs to go quite quickly.
Yeah, he's a hitter. I don't think there's any question about that. He's kind of built. He's got almost like a linebacker build, even though he's only 206 pounds, but he's thick thickly built.
He's 6 foot, so yeah,
That's why he brings the wood.
You know, some of the other scouting stuff on him, he's got elite center field capabilities. He gets from sideline to sideline very well. He's quick to decide and get to the football. Doesn't waste any motion. He anticipates really well. He can handle tight ends in coverage as a safety, and I think he is tailor-made. I like this guy. I like this guy better than DeJean for the Bills because he's a safety.
Well, right, and I think what's going to be interesting here is where they feel the ideal fit is for him at safety, because I think some teams are going to look at him and his build and say, "Oh, he's a box safety."
Yeah,
because he's built like a linebacker. He's thick and he can hit. You know, he can even meet a running back in a hole and make a tackle. But how he times at the combine may change people's mind. Now, when he tested at Miami's pro day last year, because, you know, they have the underclassmen run and everything to get eyeballs on them early, he ran a 4.45. Now, that's at Miami on their watch. We'll see what it means. But if he runs in the 4.4s at the combine, yeah, he's a guy that can be a half-field safety in the NFL.
Yeah, but also, and most of the staff, like Brandon Bean and all the scouts, they're like, yeah, the 40 times is all that good. Remember, famously, they don't care how they run. They watch the film.
Right.
If the guy looks good on film, if he plays fast enough on film, they don't care if he runs a 6 flat 40, because they'll have a guy that nobody else is going to want, and they're going to get him because they see him on film. That kind of thing. You know, famously, he's saying, "Hey, run slow," you know, so nobody likes you.
That was Gabe Davis.
That, you know, so you get a guy like that, and that's. The film tells these guys everything they want to know, and Kinchens, I think this guy is. I think he's going to got a chance to be a star. I really do. Also, he came out. He was like a 3-star recruit. He was a good guy, and then all of a sudden he spread his wings. I mean, he got into an environment that was really good for him, and he had a little bit of something to prove maybe, and the guy absolutely exploded onto the scene in Miami, and that says something.
Yeah.
And you know who else? Didn't the Bills just get a guy from Miami?
Oh, the corners coach. Jemiah Adai. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Steve is already connecting the dots.
Yeah.
So,
you go, Steve. Last guy on the list had a big week at the Senior Bowl, really separated himself as a premier corner in this draft class, and he is corner only.
Yes. So he comes out of Toledo, and yeah, I was going to say has had a lot of buzz since his performance in the Senior Bowl. Quinyon Mitchell, he's a junior, 6 feet, 196 pounds, played in 46 games as a 3-year starter. In his career, 6 interceptions, 2 that he returned for touchdowns, 52 passes defensed, 6.5 TFLs, 122 total tackles. He is a second-team All-America, earned that honor in 2023, and in the last 2 seasons, first-team All-MAC, so has some awards there that he's received for his good play in the last few seasons. And when you turn on the tape, he's a really good coverage defender. He's just solid at that. He's athletic. He's a good tackler, has nice awareness of the ball and what the quarterback is doing at all times. He can read and react very quickly. He is a disruptor when it comes to going against wide receivers. You see that in his makeup, in his body, 6 feet. It's not like he's 6'5", but he plays pretty tall, and he can run with just about everybody. He doesn't have that burst of speed right off the bat, but he has build-up speed, and it looks like he can hang in there with anybody.
This says he's got a 75 and 6/8 wingspan.
Yeah, he's a very long-limbed athlete, so even though he's only 6 foot, he plays taller than that.
Yes.
With long arms. I'm curious to see. I got to go back and look at the Senior Bowl, what his arms measured at. But he had a great Senior Bowl week, and this is an example of a quick-twitch athlete, someone who can mirror people in coverage. Yes, he had 6 interceptions. 4 of them came in one game against Northern Illinois. He had 52 pass breakups, as Maddy mentioned. I think the last hurdle for him to be a premier corner in the NFL is he has to turn more of those PBUs into takeaways, because he is in position a lot and for whatever reason does not come up with the football. And I think that's the last hurdle for him. He does that, he is a potential Pro Bowl corner talent. for the NFL. I think he's going to come off the board early. He's like first 15 picks guy.
Yeah, that would be great if he, if some of these guys, like we say, it's a roll of the dice. You don't know if they're going to even be available when the Bills pick, let alone if the Bills are going to pick a corner. I think this guy's long gone, and certainly you could see some stuff we've seen it happen other years where all of a sudden, instead of 3 or 4 offensive tackles going, 6 go, and then there's 6 edge rushers that go instead of 4, and then you got 4 picks that are dropping and dropping and dropping, and you get to 28 in the first round. That means something.
Mm-hmm.
That really means something because you could get a guy that was projected in the top 20 to drop to 28.
Yeah. And in Mel Kiper's big board that I was talking about earlier of his best 25 prospects, Cooper DeJean was 12. Well, Quinyon Mitchell is 17. So he's not far down from Cooper DeJean as one of the best prospects in this draft class, in the 2024 draft class. So it'll be interesting to see how these numbers change for these guys. On the board right now, when we're looking at these mock drafts, these guys are available at number 28. But will a guy like Mitchell start to rise up the board, start to rise up mock drafts as we get into the combine as we see some more of these solid numbers in terms of measurements and 40-yard dash and 3-cone and all of those things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the fun part is thinking about, as I get back to this, is thinking about the Bills and where they're going to be, when this, who's going to be available at 20. Because there's going to be somebody there who we didn't think was going to be there at 28. And there's going to be somebody there at 60. There's, these top 3 picks. We have 3 picks inside the top 100 players. They're going to get 3 really good athletes, some guys that really have some promise. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see where that happens and how that happens.
Yeah, Brandon Beane put the pressure on himself because he said, we really got to hit on this draft. Because he knows they need an injection of youth. They need cheap labor because of their cap situation. So they want to hit on every draft. But you can almost tell, he's saying that in January. He's already feeling, I don't want to say he feels the pressure, but I think he feels the gravity and the importance of this draft for this team going forward, because he knows maybe more than any other year they're really going to have to rely on some young players to play some significant roles on this football team this coming season.
And after this past season, when he spoke to the media to kind of wrap up this year, he said, look at what we got from guys like Dalton Kincaid and Osiris Torrance. These were 2 rookies who played big-time roles on this team, and we might need that from guys that we draft in this year's draft class.
Right. Maddie, thanks for bringing us up to speed on Mock Draft 1.0, which is presented by Ticketmaster. Any idea on the calendar for 2.0?
I believe we'll release it early next week. I think we're going to go weekly with these. There's going to be 10 total.
Okay.
All right.
Well, keep an eye out for it. In the meantime, digest Mock Draft 1.0.
It's my favorite segment of the offseason every week.
Thanks, Tasker.
All right, so that's Mock Draft 1.0 presented by Ticketmaster. We'll catch up with Maddie with the next edition, presumably sometime next week. But if you want to get a full look at it, you just go to BuffaloBills.com.